A lot of people talking about the Chiefs and their luck this year. Where do you stand on your team here?
I think the Kansas City Chiefs conversation in football media this year has been one of the dumbest things I've ever experienced. I think the recreation of history by people who swore this is last year the Chiefs lost 5 of 8 games, had a legitimately broken position group, had, according to the folks at DVOA, one of the 3 hardest roads to a Super Bowl ever. The worst version of Mahomes we'd ever seen, all of these things. Won the Super Bowl, and then everyone swore, I'll never make that mistake again. I'll never question them. I learned my lesson. This year, they have the best record in football, despite crippling injuries where guys are now coming back, and folks are saying, oh, actually this Chiefs team is worse than last year's. If the Chiefs lost every game left on their schedule, they would finish with the same record as last season. We saw the Niners lose running back 1, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 for a piece of the year and fall apart. The Chiefs lost those 3 positions and are 11-1 with Pacheco and Hollywood coming back. This is where I think the analytics and smart crowd has missed some stuff on football. I don't pray at the altar of the point differential gods the way some people demand I must. I swear, the smartest folks in football, the Ravens can finish 9-8, and they're going to tell me they're a great team. Oh, it's one of the greatest offenses in the history of football. I understand wins are not a quarterback stat, but I would think they're a team stat. But turns out I'm wrong. Turns out you know what? If you lose 3 out of 7, but your 4 wins, 2 of them are by 20 plus points, that's better than winning all 7. And so I think it is asinine. I also think that a team that has to plan to play 20 games and that knows it's going to be in the final games of the season with the best coach in football, maybe, just maybe, they are not using the regular season the way the Lions are. Maybe, just maybe, the Chiefs, when they're playing the Panthers or they're playing the Raiders, they're like, oh, okay, we could spam this concept that works, and that would give us a more impressive victory. But would that put us in the best position to be at our best in the playoffs? And is it just a random coincidence that every year this team plays its best football games in the playoffs? Or is there a method to it? Of course there's a method to it. But people just want to be wrong. People just want to consistently be wrong. And I'll add one other point. Find me the instance across all of sports. I yesterday on the TV show said Major League Baseball, the NFL, the NBA. But Sam, we can go to rugby. I'll go to anything you want where this is the situation. Defending champion, much less 2-time defending champion, with same coach, same best player, best record in the league the next year, and people are like, that team's in trouble. It's never happened. It would be idiotic and people are like, oh, well, Nick, it's because you're from Kansas City. Yeah, okay. I think the Chiefs' discourse this year has been one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. Honest to God.
I think it's a product, though, of everything being black or white and turbocharged to the most extreme version, right? I think there's a reasonable argument to be made that the Chiefs are not as good as their current record. Now, immediately people take that too far and they say, look at every one of these wins, and I mean, not all of them are lucky, right? Like the Ravens week 1 thing, the toe, everyone's like they're a toe away from losing that game. They're a toe away from the touchdown that almost ties it, which then needed the extra point or the 2 points. So, like, that was a close win, right? Where it could have gone further. But I think you can say they were lucky.
Here would be my question. So here would be my question. Sorry to interrupt. Is there ever an 11-1 team that's as good as its record? Because there's very few losses that could be wins, but there's always going to be wins that could be losses. Like, are the Lions as good as their record? Are they actually worse than, should they be 12-0? Or are we going to say no, they're like what the this like I'm it's an honest question. Like is it because I know the Ravens are a great team. And Lamar is a one-of-one transcendent quarterback. They just happen to lose all the time. It's this weird thing. They're this great team that everyone's afraid of. They just lose all the time. So I just like the Ravens are obviously better than their record, and they have to be respected. And we have to fear them. And up until a couple weeks ago, the Niners, all this talent, and take the Niners seriously. And then finally they lose too many games. We were like, oh, okay, maybe the record matters. Like, are the Bills as good as a 10-2 team? Are the Lions as good as an 11-1 team? Or is it just that it's an honest question? I don't know.
But the thing that I'm really interested in is the point you made about the fact that they're planning for 20 games, not 17, right? Like, in this world of peaking in October or November is irrelevant. We want to be peaking in January because we expect to be going to the Super Bowl again and trying to win it again. Last year's Chiefs team, I think, was probably worse than this year's Chiefs team, but they changed in the postseason, right? Either they got rescued by realizing what they had in Rashee Rice, or simply everybody just flipped the switch. Mahomes was different. Kelsey was different. They realized now it's for real. Let's go. Was that something that they are able to repeat and consistently do, in which case what they look like right now with sort of scraping by Carolina and scraping by Denver, pretty much irrelevant. It's what they look like in January.
Well, what would be relevant, what I would say is if they end up squandering the 1 seed,
Sure.
That has a real impact. There's no denying it. Even though they have proven they can go to Buffalo and win in the playoffs, and Buffalo is yet to prove they can beat the Chiefs in a game that matters ever, just the extra game, by virtue of playing the extra game, all that could matter. But I'm going to use a very specific example, and I know I can be obnoxious when talking about this. I don't mean to be. It's just so frustrating. And this is a real question. Raiders game Black Friday. 3rd and 2. If they get the first down, they ice the game. The game is over. We don't have any of the end. Does anyone actually think that the Chiefs thought the very best chance we have of getting these 2 yards is a bomb to Xavier Worthy? Or is it on the board that while the Chiefs wanted to ice it there, they also said, there are things we need to be working on. And this is a play that, by the way, AFC Championship game last year, 3rd and 10, iced the game. MVS. They ran that exact play to MVS, and it worked. It's like, oh, he's gone. This guy's going to be in that role. Let's get a high leverage, high nervousness, all of it, rep of this in real time. Like, folks be like, oh, nobody plays that way. I don't know, man. The team that's trying to become the first team ever to three-peat, I think they might be. Because I don't think Andy Reid and Mahomes was like, the best way to get these 2 yards is this. But is the goal to get those 2 yards, or is the goal to win the final game of the year? And until the Chiefs don't win the final game of the year, I think they deserve not just the benefit of the doubt, but more than that. And the number of smart people that I like that are like, oh, this team's one and done in the playoffs, which means you have them losing a home playoff game to, Denver or whomever. I just find it absurd.
Can there be a nuanced approach to this? Can I ask the question, do you think, even as a Chiefs fan, if you go back, because people did this with the Patriots dynasty all the time, you take away this play, take away this play. They could have 10 rings or they could have 3. Do you think there's something to, if Brock Purdy completes 1 pass in the Super Bowl, there's a batted pass, Chiefs made the play. They're 1 play away from the Niners sealing it last year. They're maybe a late hit out of bounds against the Bengals in the AFC Championship. This year, they're a handful of plays away from losing. Is this a knack for always making those plays? Do you have faith as a Chiefs fan that they'll always make that 1 extra play than the team against them?
So again, I think that is not my frustration with that line, and I'll answer the question. My frustration with that kind of line, because that's a smart question, obviously. You're a brilliant guy. Is I don't think we never do it the other way, and we also don't always play out the strength. So people are like, oh, you're playing this close to the margins, you're always a bounce away. In the toughest playoff game they had, I think the one, I know that Super Bowl ended up going to overtime, but the one that seemed like was going to be the hardest was the Bills divisional round. The Bills team's got to have it. They're red hot. First road playoff game for Mahomes. They fumbled on the one and won anyway. They had one of those terrible fluke things. So another way to look at it is, oh, they were one play away from blowing that team out. When we talk about the late hit out of bounds people bring up, and I know you're just using it as a for instance, don't call that penalty. Mahomes still has 8 seconds, and you need another 8 yards to get in field goal range. I think they're going to do it. And so there is at some point, I feel like an acknowledgement of football being a small sample size sport, and that if somebody always does it, it's not luck. Now, do I think they're going to win the Super Bowl every year? Of course not. Do I think that they'll never lose to the Bills in the playoffs? Of course not. There's other really good teams. There's other great players. But I don't look at the Chiefs that they got lucky in that Super Bowl. I looked at it as Mahomes played poorly. Pacheco fumbled, going into the end zone. And despite all of that, they won. And the 2 drives, they had to have, end of regulation and in overtime, tick, tick, tick down the field. And I'll say one other thing, and then we can move on, because I'm sure this is too much. It's not lost on me that, there are things that work that are also not best for the health of the franchise that they have in their back pocket. 4th down, overtime Super Bowl. Highest leverage spot that could exist in NFL history. Was the first time they ran a designed quarterback run since Mahomes dislocated his knee 6 years before. So there are just these things, that's not a coincidence. That's a break glass in case of emergency. And the reason I'm less impressed than I think some are with the Lions, who I think are an excellent team and a great roster, man, I hope Ben Johnson's got 35 trick plays, because they really like showing them off in blowouts and early in games. And maybe he just has the deepest bag of anyone ever, or maybe they are playing a slightly different game than Kansas City is.
He said that. He's basically said, look, we're in no danger of running out of trick plays. We have an endless supply of these things. So I'm happy to, aside from anything else, I love seeing them. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.